To the one who wondered, the one who wept, and the one who woke. You were never lost. You were never broken. You were always becoming. This is for the child within you, the dragons who guide you, the divine voice that whispers your name in silence. And this is for everyone who dares to remember. You are the flame. You are the way. You are the light that calls itself home. The mirror child. In the in-between place, where silence owned and shadows held their breath, a boy walked alone with a broken shard of mirror. His hands were small, his heart vast, too vast for the world he was born into. The air around him was thick with the ache of unspoken words. Buildings towered above, empty of faces. Trees whispered secrets he couldn't quite hear. The sky was pale, like a memory that had forgotten itself. He had been walking forever, or maybe not long at all. Time did not seem to move here. He held the mirror, piece close to his chest. He didn't know why. He had followed him, or perhaps he had followed it. In its cracked reflection, he sometimes saw a face, not his own, but familiar. A woman, cloaked in light, with eyes like galaxies, and a voice that never spoke yet was always present. But when he turned to look, there was no one. He was a child of the quiet, unseen, unheard, a whisper in a world too loud to listen. He had tried to shout once, long ago, to prove his worth, to be loved, to be special, but the silence swallowed his voice whole. And so he learned to stop asking, to stop hoping. He buried his light, convinced it was too bright, too strange, too much for others to bear. Better to dim than to disappear entirely. But that night, something changed. He stopped beneath a sky little tree, its roots exposed like veins in the earth. He looked down at the mirror. For a moment, it shimmered, not with his reflection, but with a warm golden light. A whisper bloomed in the space behind his thoughts. You are seen. The voice did not come from outside. It rose from within, from the depth of his being, where sorrow meets starlight. He fell to his knees, not from fear, but from a sudden gravity pulling him inward. Tears welled, not of pain, but of remembrance, of something he hadn't known, he'd forgotten. The sky shifted. Above him, stars began to stir, not like lights, but like living beings. Their movement, slow and deliberate, like the breath of something ancient. Dragons, not the kind from stories, but pure beings of energy, serene, vast, and eternal. They spoke not in words, but through knowing. We are the keepers of your light. We do not come to save you, we come to awaken you. The child closed his eyes, the mirror held to his heart. And then she came, a presence, both fire and water, her love, fierce and endless. She was above and below, the keeper of the ice and the underworld. She was Seraph, Queen of Heaven, Guardian of the depths, the divine feminine within all things. She did not speak, she was. He could feel her move through him, like wind through a field. Her hands, passed through the mirror and into his chest, and there, within him, was the light he had forgotten. Not something to be earned, not something to be proven, but something he was. The boy wept, not from sadness, from recognition, from home. The voice of the dragon. Silence lingered long after Seraph's presence faded into the starlight mist. But the boy knew now that silence was not emptiness. It was the voice of something deeper, a space where truth waited to be heard. He rose slowly from the earth, the mirror shard still pulled faintly in his hand, no longer cold, but alive, as if it had merged with his heartbeat. His tears had dried, but a quiet river flowed now inside him, deeper than emotion, something ancient, something awake. Then the sky opened, not with thunder, not with light, but with stillness. Shapes began to emerge, great, serpentine figures woven from starlight, drifting like smoke across the heavens. No wings, no fire, only presence. Their eyes were not eyes. They were endless points of knowing. They looked at him, and he felt it, not judged, not measured, understood. "You are not broken," said the first voice, from everywhere and nowhere. "You are unfolding." The words did not enter his ears. They arrived in his bones. They reverberate like a sound too sacred to be spoken loud. You feared being unseen, and so you forgot how to see yourself. Another dragon swirled slowly above him, its form glittering like constellation swimming in the ocean of space. "We are not above you, we are within you. You call us dragons, for what this is the shape your soul can hold. But we are more. We are frequencies of the same light that birth stars. The same light you carry." The boy clutched the mirror tighter. Then, why was I alone? A silence followed, deep and warm. Because a mirror cannot show you the light while it's turned away. Because power must be chosen, not granted. Because Seraph could only meet you in the stillness you feared. The boy trembled, not from fear, but from the overwhelming peace of being told the truth. He looked in the mirror, and for the first time, it did not show his face. It showed light, rippling like fire, flowing like water, shining like dawn. "Raise your vibration," said the dragons, "and we will meet you there." And so the boy sat, cross-legged, in the middle of the forgotten dream world. He closed his eyes and breathed, not from his chest, but from his soul. He called on his light, not to escape, but to remember. He called on Seraph, not to save him, but to awaken him. And as the frequency rose, and the mirror softened into gold, the dragons began to circle him, not as gods, not as masters, but as mirrors of the truth he already was. The descent into the inner realms. The light within the mirror had softened into a glow that no longer needed to blind to be true. It pulses now with rhythm, his rhythm. The boy sat still, eyes closed, surrounded by the circling presence of the dragons and the whispering essence of Seraph. He felt peace, but peace is not the end of the journey. It is the invitation to begin. To become whole, Seraph whispered, you must first remember what you locked away. The ground beneath him trembled, not in violence, but as if a door, long sealed, had been found again. A crack opened beneath his feet, not outside, but inside. Down, down, down. He fell, not through space, but through memory, through emotion, through time. He landed in a place without color, not black, not white, just absence. A vast corridor stretched before him, lined with doors, each one humming faintly, each one marked not with words, but with feelings. Loneliness, shame, rage, guilt, silence. He knew this place. He had built it. The boy reached for the first door. His hand trembled, not from fear of the pain, but fear that it would be swallowed by it. I will not leave you, came Seraph's voice. He opened the door. Inside, a classroom. Small desks, flickering lights, the smell of chalk and cold air. Children's laughing, but not with him, at him. A teacher dismisses his question. A hand doesn't get raised. A voice doesn't get heard. He sees the child, himself, shrinking smaller and smaller with each moment of invisibility. They didn't see him. They didn't hear him. Seraph stands beside him now, no longer distant, because they could not yet see themselves. The boy walks into the scene and kneels beside his younger self. He does not correct him. He does not try to fix him. He just holds him. The mirror in his chest warms. The classroom fades. He moves to the next door. Inside, a dark bedroom. Heavy air. A voice raised in anger. Another in fear. The boy hides under the blanket. Tears press against his eyes. But he's trained himself not to cry. Crying is weak. Weak means unloved. No one protected me. This time, it is the dragons who surround him. But you are protected now. You have always been protected. From forgetting too long. He breathes deep. This time, when he kneels beside the small boy, he whispers, you are loved. The child dissolves into light. The mirror glows brighter. He opens door after door. In each one, he finds pieces of himself he had abandoned. Not because they were unworthy, but because he thought they had to be hidden to survive. But now, he sees. They were never wounds. They were initiations. Each fragment returns to his heart like a shard of crystal. And when he stands again in the vast corridor, the colorless world begins to bloom. Color returns. Light returns. He returns. A spiral of light opens above. Seraph descends in full form now. Wings of flame and water. Crown of stars and bone. She smiles, not as a goddess to a worshipper, but as a mother to a sovereign. You have walked through shadow, not to escape the world, but to know it. And now, you are ready to live free. The boy, no longer only a boy, looks into the mirror. This time, he sees everything. His joy, his rage, his fear, his light, all of it. And he smiles. The return to the upper world. He rose from the dead, not as a child reaching toward the sky, but as light returning to itself. Each step onward was not a movement through space, but through being. The path was no longer dark. It shimmered under his feet, forming as he walked, created by his will, his clarity, his remembrance. He no longer followed the dragons, he walked with them. And Seraph, she was no longer above or beside, she was him. Her voice, once distant, now bloomed from the inside. Freedom is not the absence of pain, she said. It is the presence of truth. And you, child of light, are that truth made flesh. The boy, becoming more than a boy now, stepped out of the dream realms into a world that had once felt so cold, so vast, so indifferent. But something had changed. Not the world, him. He no longer looked at the world to be chosen. He chose. He saw people not through the lens of fear, but through the clarity of compassion. He saw their masks, their walls, their confusion, and he no longer needed to judge it, or fix it, or fear it. He understood, because he had been it, and now he was free. He walked among them, humans with weary eyes, hearts full of noise, trying so hard to be enough. He didn't shout to be heard anymore. He simply was. His presence did the speaking. His silence did the singing. His silence did the singing. His eyes told stories the world had forgotten how to hear. He met children who reminded him of who he used to be, lonely, afraid, wild with unseen brilliance. He met elders whose light had grown dim under the weight of time, and to each he offered not advice, not teaching, not doctrine. He offered space, and in that space their own light began to flicker again, not because of him, but because he had become a mirror. One evening, beneath the sky, now alive with the breath of the dragons, he sat quietly, with his hands over his heart. The mirror was no longer an object. It was his entire being. He closed his eyes. He no longer needed to speak to the celestial ones. He simply listened. "You are not here to escape the world," Seraph whispered within. "You are here to live it fully, with all your light, with all your power, with all your love. You are the bridge now. You are the meeting point between heaven and earth. A child once lost, now a flame that walks." The world within the world. The world had not changed. The noise still lingered in the streets. People still ran from silence, still clung to masks, still feared being seen. But to the boy, now luminous, now sovereign, it no longer felt like exile. It felt like invitation, because now he could see. There were two worlds, one layered inside the other. The first, visible, loud, restless. The second, silent, infinite, alive. The world of form and the world of essence. Most people lived only in the first. They moved through the days like ghosts, chasing approval, mistaking repetition for freedom. But the boy, he walked in both. He breathed the invisible. He drank from the unseen. Every morning, he sat in stillness, not to escape, but to tune. He placed his hand over his heart, where the mirror now lived as light, and he listened, not with ears, but with presence. What reality do I choose today? He would whisper, and he would feel the answer rise, not from his thoughts, but from the deep, the unified field where the dragons stirred and seraph hummed like a sun behind his ribs. One day it was joy, another clarity, sometimes silence. He no longer chased experience, he invited frequencies. He learned the secret most never hear. Reality does not happen to you, it responds to you. And so he began to play, not with control, but with resonance. If he wished for kindness, he became it. If he wished for beauty, he embodied it. And like waves returning to their source, the world around him echoed his inner sky. Not instantly, not always in the ways his mind expected, but always, always with truth. He once passed, a man hunched on a bench, eyes glazed with despair. The boy paused, not to fix him, but to see him, truly see. He let his presence pour outward like quiet light. The man looked up. No words passed between them, but something softened. A spark flickered behind tired eyes. Not because the boy gave anything away, but because he remembered who he was, and let that remembrance ripple through space. He began to speak less and listen more. He no longer needed to explain his worth or defend his light. He knew who he was, and that knowing shaped the world around him like breath shapes mist. He was not here to win, he was here to be. At night, he would lie beneath the stars, and the dragons would gather again, not above, but within. You are the dreamer and the dream, they would murmur. You are the song and the singer. You are the child, the guide, and the gate. Seraph would wrap him in warmth. Her presence no longer separate, but braided into every beat of his heart. Live, my beloved, she would say. Not for the world, not against it, but through it. And you would sleep, not to escape, but to rest in the arms of all that was. The seraph within. He had walked through light, he had walked through shadow, he had remembered the stars and the silence between them. Now, there was nothing left to seek, only to become. One morning, as the sun rose pale and slow across the horizon, he felt her stir. Not in the sky, not in the forest, not in the mirror, but in his breath, in the soft place behind his heart, in the voice that no longer whispered to him, but as him. I am not above you, she said. I am not beside you. I am you. His eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of holy remembrance. All the years he had prayed, reached, waited, called, he had never been apart from her. The distance had been illusion, the separation a veil. She was not the answer to his questions, she was the voice that formed them. And now the veil had fallen. He stood before a still pool, deep in the forest. The water, perfectly still, mirrored the sky. But as he looked down, he didn't see only his reflection. He saw her face, his face, shimmering into one. Eyes ancient and innocent, lips silent and singing, hands strong and open. You are the queen of heaven, she said, and you are the keeper of the underworld. You are the light, and you are the passage. You are what you've waited for. He laughed, softly at first, then louder, not from ego, but from joy, from the simplicity of truth finally felt in his bones. He danced alone in the clearing, hands raised to the sky, not in worship, but in celebration. He was no longer a channel, he was the instrument. Seraph no longer moved through him, she moved as him. And with this knowing came a new silence, not empty, but fertile. He began to speak again, not often, but when called. And when he spoke, it was not performance, it was prophecy. It was poetry born of presence. People felt it. Some cried, some laughed, some ran, some bowed. But he no longer needed anything from their response. He no longer feared rejection. He no longer performed for approval. He simply was. And when the dragons returned, he did not kneel. He nodded. And they bowed. It is done, they said. You have remembered. Now the world will meet her through you. He walked forward, not as a boy, not as a god, but as a vessel of the eternal feminine force made manifest in flesh. He did not claim divinity as a crown, but as a current. He did not separate spirit from life. He lived both. He was both. The temple of the everyday. He no longer searched for sacred places. Everywhere he walked was holy. The market, with its hum of voices and scent of dust and citrus, was a temple. The child crying in the alley, whose grief shook the air, was a prayer. The silence between footsteps, the pause before a breath, was a chant. He did not need rituals. He was the ritual. In the morning, he washed his face as if anointing a king. He prepared food as if feeding the gods. He spoke not to be heard, but to vibrate truth. And he listened, not only to words, but to the space between them. There, in the stillness, the dragons still breathed. There, Seraph still sang. He did not speak of miracles, he lived them. He smiled at strangers, not to be kind, but because he saw them. And to be seen through the eyes of love is the rarest blessing of all. He sat with the broken, not to heal them, but to remember that nothing is ever truly broken. He taught nothing, but his presence taught everything. One day, a girl with eyes like mirrors asked him, "Are you a god?" He shook his head. "No," he said. "I just stopped pretending I wasn't." He walked into conflict not as a warrior, but as a field of peace. Rage melted in his silence. Violence lost its meaning in his gaze. He carried no weapon. His presence disarmed. He was not better than others. He no longer lived in comparisons. He saw everyone as they were, divine, dreaming, sometimes drawing, but always capable of rising. Sometimes he still felt sadness. Sometimes the old ache of invisibility brushed his ribs, but he no longer ran from it. He welcomed it like a long-lost friend. "You taught me what matters," he would whisper to the ache. You led me here. At night, he would sit by the window, watching the stars flicker, and he would smile, knowing the dragons still circled, not out there, but in air. A seraph would hum softly in his breath, a song without words, only feeling, and the world, messy, beautiful, imperfect, would keep turning. But he had learned the secret. He was not in the world was in him. The offering. He no longer asked, "What should I do?" He asked, "What wishes to move through me?" The worlds came first, soft, simple, almost shy. He would sit beneath trees or near windows and write, not from thought, but from flow. Sometimes they were poems, sometimes prayers, sometimes a single line that carried more truth than an entire book. He did not write to impress. He wrote because something inside him sang, and the page was listening. Then came movement. He would walk, and his body would feel called to sway, to stretch, to curl like wind. Not dance in the way others might know it, but movement as devotion, as if his bones were speaking ancient language, as if the earth remembered his steps from lifetimes past. And sometimes he would just be, in silence, in stillness, and the world around him would shift, not because he changed it, but because he offered his presence fully to it. One morning, an elder came to him, eyes heavy with years, voice like dried leaves. "I've lost my way," they said. "I used to believe, now I only survive." The boy didn't answer with wisdom or quotes, just placed his hands over the elder's heart. Not to heal, to witness. And for the first time in decades, the elder wept, not from pain, but because they were finally seen. This became his way, to see, to feel, to share. Only what asked to be shared, and nothing more. His life was no longer a performance, it was a ceremony. He let the wind write poems in his hair. He let the rain baptize him without reason. He let the moments pass like sacred beads between fingers. His voice was no longer his, it was the offering. He painted the unseen with his gaze. He turned silence into gold. Even his breath, he gave freely to the world, as if each inhale were a gift, and each exhale a blessing. Not because he had to, but because love had become the only natural state. One night, a child approached him with wide, curious eyes. "What are you?" the child asked. He smiled. "I am a doorway," he said. "I am what you already are, just a little further down the path." The child nodded, not confused, but comforted. Because children always know what adults forget. He did not need followers. He did not build a temple. Because everywhere he went, he offered his life as a temple. And when he spoke, even the stars paused to listen, not to him, but to the light that poured through his open heart. "I am not here to convince you," he would say. "I am here to remind you what you already are." The return as guide. He no longer needed to search the stars. He had become one. Years had passed. Though time no longer held the same weight, he marked season not by calendars, but by shifts in awareness, by the tone of the wind, by the song of the earth beneath his feet. He lived quietly, simply, but the world found him. First, they came one by one. A young artist, lost in the noise of self-doubt, an elder facing the end of life, afraid of the dark, a mother who had forgotten she was more than what she gave. They arrived not because of advertisement or acclaim, but because something in them recognized something in him, a familiarity, a peace, a presence that reminded them of something ancient, something wild, something true. He did not teach from a stage. He taught from fire circle, from quiet walks, from the silence between two cups of tea. His guidance was not instruction, it was invitation. He never said, "Follow me." He said, "Go inward, I'll walk with you." Sometimes they cried, sometimes they laughed, sometimes they said nothing at all, but left with something newly alive behind their eyes. Not because he gave them answers, but because he gave them back to themselves. And then one day, a bird arrived, alone, quiet, mirror clutched in trembling hands, eyes full of questions he couldn't yet speak. The boy saw himself in him, exactly as he once had been, and he smiled. He knelt beside him, not as a savior, as a mirror. "You are not lost," he whispered. "You are walking yourself home. You are not broken. You are remembering. What you're looking for is already inside you." The child wept, and the light between them passed like a flame shared between candles. He no longer feared being invisible. Now he walked through the world as presence itself, no longer needing proof, no longer afraid of shadows. He had become what he once sought, a guide, a bridge, a living breath of the divine. And far above, the dragons turned in slow spirals of gold, not watching over him, but with him, because now they were one. And Seraph, she no longer needed to speak. Her voice was now his heartbeat, her light, his eyes, her wisdom, his breath. He had returned, not to save the world, but to walk it as love embodied. And wherever he went, the world remembered itself. The infinite flame. There came a day when even his body felt like a coat too small for the light he had become. Not because it was failing, but because he had grown into something beyond it. He felt it not as fear, but as expansion. The sky no longer looked above him, it looked through him. The wind no longer brushed his skin, it sang his name. He sat beneath the tree where it all begun, alone, but not lonely. He watched the sun rise, slow and golden, just as it always had. But this time, he saw it for what it truly was. Not a star, a mirror, a reflection of his own flame. He placed his hand over his heart one last time, not to ask, but to honor. The mirror inside him glowed, then dissolved. There was no more separation, no more veil, no more boundary between him and Seraph, between him and the dragons, between him and the source. There was only being, and then he exhaled, one long, holy breath. And in that breath, he became sky, he became starlight, he became a song without him. The world did not mourn him, it recognized him. In the eyes of children, now bright with wonder, in the hands of artists, painting from soul again, in the world's whispering by poets who had never met him, but somehow remembered him, in the fires tended by wanderers who sat quietly and said, "There was once a boy who walked alone. He found his light. He became a flame. And now he walks in all of us. The dragons sleep now in the marrow of those who dare to feel deeply. Seraph breath through the mouths of those who speak with love and silence in equal measure. And the boy, he walks still, everywhere, not as a memory, not as a myth, as a quiet knowing in your chest that says, you are light, you are Om, you are the infinite flame." How do you teach sovereignty? You first see the light within. This light resides within each and every individual, within every creation. It is a spark of divinity, the source from which all things emanate. You must recognize this light, not just within yourself, but in all things. To truly understand sovereignty, you must look beyond the surface, beyond the forms that the world has shaped, and see the essence of all beings. To teach sovereignty, you must learn to zoom out, to expand your vision and witness the bigger picture of creation. See the perfection of the path that each soul has chosen. See their journey not as a series of random events, but as a sacred unfolding, a path of growth, struggle, and transformation. And in this vision, do not judge, but see the divine hand that guides them all. Then, interface with others from this perspective of understanding. Approach each being with compassion, for the road they walk may be fraught with challenges you may never know. See the divinity within them, honor their journey, and recognize the light in their heart. Are you ready to believe in the power of your divinity? For it is in this belief that your sovereignty is born. This is not arrogance nor pride, but a deep, humble recognition of the divine power that flows through you. This belief will shape your consciousness. It will transform the way you see the world, and ultimately, the way you live in it. You will still be you, still present, still here and now, but now you'll see differently. You will recognize that you are the light, so brightly, so intensely, that even the darkness will be pleased by your glow. As you ascend, as you grow in understanding and power, remember that you are not alone in this journey. You are part of the vast ocean of suffering that exists in the world. The pain, the grief, the confusion, it's real, and it touches every soul. But it is also through this suffering that compassion is born. It is through the heart that has felt the weight of the world that true empathy arises. And so, as you rise, you must carry this ocean of compassion with you. It is a sacred responsibility, for as powerful as you become, as bright as your light may shine, you must never be steamrolled by your own empathy. You must never let the suffering of the world drown you, for you too are the divine balance. You are the light, but you are also the container for compassion. Your power is rooted in grace, with which you hold the suffering of the world, without losing yourself in it. This is the dance of sovereignty, to shine bright and not be consumed, to ascend and still remain grounded, to feel the pain of the world and yet rise above it with unconditional love. May you walk this path with humility. May your light shine brightly, and may your compassion be as vast as the sky. You'll be free like the ocean. Thank you.